galaxy torn apart by endless war, Earth made one choice: stay out of it. We refused every alliance, ignored every plea, built peaceful colonies among the stars. Until one stray missile turned a thriving human settlement into radioactive ash, killing 12,000 innocents in an instant. Now the galaxy is about to learn why humanity stayed silent for so long, because when we finally enter the war, we don't just fight. We change everything. Before we dive deeper into the story, please subscribe. It costs you nothing, but helps Stellar HFY a lot. The Galactic Conclave chamber hung in the cold void above Luna like a predator's eye, massive, crystalline, and alive with shifting holographic displays. Thousands of alien delegates filled the amphitheater, their voices merging into a deafening roar of clicks, hisses, guttural booms, and melodic trills. The air was thick with tension and the metallic scent of ozone from overworked translators. At the center podium stood Ambassador Elena Voss, the only human in the entire assembly. Tall, composed, and unflinching in her dark diplomatic uniform, she faced down the sea of hostile eyes. "We will not join your war," Elena declared, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. The translator drones amplified her words into 100 languages simultaneously. "Not for the Krik's dominion, not for the Vayari alliance. Earth refuses to bleed for your ancient hatreds." A towering Krik's warlord, 7 feet of scarred muscle and obsidian scales, slammed his clawed fist onto the podium hard enough to crack the surface. His 4 red eyes burned with fury. "You dare speak of neutrality while the galaxy burns? The Vayari are glassing our outer colonies. If we fall, their fleets will turn on your precious little worlds next." Elena met his gaze without blinking. "Then perhaps you should stop glassing each other. Humanity has watched your empires tear one another apart for 3 centuries. While you fought, we built. Mars, the Belt colonies, the gardens of Proxima, we chose peace. We will defend our own, but we will not die for your grudges." The chamber exploded. Delegates surged forward, some waving tentacles, others flaring bioluminescent threat patterns. A sleek Vayari delegate, a graceful avian with shimmering silver feathers and cold obsidian eyes, rose slowly. Her voice was melodic yet laced with venom. "Your species is still young, soft, fragile. When the tide inevitably turns and our war reaches your doorstep, remember this moment of arrogance, human. You will beg for the protection you now reject." Elena's jaw tightened, but her reply was ice cold. "We've heard threats like yours before, from both of you. The answer remains the same." As the session dissolved into shouting and veiled threats, Elena turned and walked toward the exit corridor, her heart hammering despite her calm exterior. Every instinct screamed that this refusal had just painted a target on humanity's back. But Earth's people had spoken clearly in the global referendum. No more foreign wars. Never again. Hours later, her shuttle Unity burned through Earth's atmosphere, streaking toward New Geneva. Elena stared out the viewport at the beautiful blue planet below. 3 billion humans lived there in relative peace, terraforming new worlds, raising families, pushing the boundaries of science. They had deliberately stayed out of the galactic meat grinder. For the first time in years, that decision felt dangerously fragile. Meanwhile, deep in the Australian reclamation zone, Captain Marcus Hale sat on the weathered porch of his family home, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of gold and crimson. The war felt impossibly distant here. His 6-year-old daughter Leela climbed into his lap, pointing excitedly at the first stars appearing overhead. "Daddy, are the monsters fighting again tonight?" she asked, her big brown eyes wide with innocent curiosity. Marcus forced a gentle smile and ruffled her dark curls. "They're always fighting, kiddo, but they won't come here. We made sure of that. Earth stays out of their games." Leela nodded solemnly, content with her father's promise. Marcus held her tighter than usual, a quiet unease gnawing at him. He had served 15 years in the United Nations Space Force before retiring to raise his daughter alone. He remembered the classified briefings, the casual brutality of Krik's and Vayari fleets, entire planets cracked open like eggs over minor territorial disputes. Humanity had always been the odd ones out, the ones who said no. Hundreds of light years away, On the lush frontier world of Proxima B, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo stood on the observation deck of Elysium Colony's central medical dome. 12,000 souls called this place home. Scientists, engineers, teachers, families chasing a better life far from Earth's crowded cities. The atmospheric processors hummed softly in the background, maintaining the perfect balance of oxygen and nitrogen. Bioluminescent gardens glowed gently under the alien sky. Sarah took a deep breath, savoring the crisp, clean air. "This is what peace feels like," she whispered to herself. After years treating war refugees in orbital hospitals, Elysium felt like paradise. Children laughed in the nearby school dome. Farmers tended hybrid crops under artificial sunlight. No one here carried the haunted look of those who had seen orbital bombardments. Her comms chimed softly. "Dr. Okonkwo, we have a minor fracture case in Bay 3. Nothing urgent." "Coming," she replied, smiling. Everything felt safe, protected. That illusion shattered at 03:17 local time. High above the colony, the orbital defense grid registered an anomaly, a bright streak slicing through the upper atmosphere. At first, the AI classified it as space debris. Routine. But within seconds, the system realized its terrible mistake. It wasn't debris. A Crix plasma lance, fired during a fierce skirmish with Vayari forces 3 light seconds away, had gone wildly off course. The guidance systems, damaged in battle, locked onto the strongest heat signature in range, Elysium's thriving fusion reactors. Sarah was walking through the medical dome when the sky outside turned blinding white. For one frozen heartbeat, she saw the missile descending like the wrath of an angry god. "Everyone down," she screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the oncoming roar. The impact was apocalyptic. The plasma warhead detonated with the force of a small sun. The central fusion reactor exploded in a secondary cataclysm, sending a fireball racing across the colony. Domes vaporized instantly. Steel melted into rivers of slag. The shockwave tore through the settlement like a scythe, flinging bodies and debris hundreds of meters. Screams lasted only fractions of a second before being silenced forever. Sarah was thrown violently across the room as the medical dome collapsed. Her last conscious thought was of the laughing children she had seen playing just hours earlier. Then darkness swallowed her. 41 light minutes away, in the Sol system, emergency channels lit up like a supernova. Marcus Hale's home comms screamed to life in the middle of the night. He bolted upright, heart thundering, as the automated message played in a cold, mechanical voice. "Elysium Colony, total loss of contact. Orbital imagery confirms complete destruction." Marcus stared at the wall, blood draining from his face. Leela stirred in the next room, calling out sleepily for her father. The war that Earth had refused to join had just come knocking. And it had wiped 12,000 innocent humans off the map in a single careless strike. The rescue fleet dropped out of warp at the edge of the Proxima system like ghosts emerging from a nightmare. 41 agonizing hours had passed since the strike. 41 hours of silence from Elysium Colony. Captain Marcus Hale stood motionless on the bridge of the UNS Resolute, his hands gripping the railing so tightly his knuckles had gone bone-white. The main view screen showed the nightmare in brutal clarity. Where a thriving settlement of 12,000 souls should have glowed with lights and life, there was only a blackened, radioactive scar gouged across the planet's surface. Twisted metal skeletons jutted from the ground like broken fingers. The air itself shimmered with residual heat and lethal radiation. "Jesus Christ," whispered Lieutenant Reyes, the sensor officer, her voice cracked. "Radiation levels are off the charts. Nothing could have survived that." Marcus said nothing. His throat felt like sandpaper. Leela's innocent question from 2 nights ago echoed in his mind. "Daddy, are the monsters fighting again?" He had promised her they wouldn't come here. That promise now lay shattered on the surface below. "Launch all survey drones," Marcus ordered, his voice hoarse. "And prepare a landing team. Heavy rad suits only. No one stays on the ground longer than 20 minutes. The shuttles descended through the toxic atmosphere. Marcus rode in the lead craft, jaw locked, staring at the approaching wasteland. As they breached the lower clouds, the full horror became visible. The central impact crater was nearly 2 kilometers wide. Glassy slag covered everything. The melted remains of homes, schools, and hospitals fused into a single nightmarish landscape. They touched down near what had once been the medical dome. Marcus's boots crunched on the brittle, fused ground. His suit's radiation alarms screamed incessantly in his helmet, a constant high-pitched reminder that death still lingered here. "Spread out," he commanded over comms. "Look for anything, black boxes, survivor beacons, anything." The team moved in tense silence, their suit lights cutting through the hazy, ash-choked air. Every few meters they found new atrocities. A child's shoe, small and pink, melted into the glass. A half-buried wedding ring fused to what remained of a finger bone. A child's toy, a stuffed bear, now just a charred lump of synthetic material. Marcus knelt beside a shattered section of wall. His gloved hand brushed away ash and revealed faint lettering. Elysium School, Grade 2. His stomach twisted violently. Leela was 6. She could have been here if they had chosen the frontier life. "Captain," Lieutenant Ray's voice trembled over the comms. "You need to see this." Marcus joined her at the edge of a collapsed structure. She held up a partially intact data shard, the remains of a colony security recorder. They plugged it into a portable reader. Sarah Okonkwo's final moments played out in horrifying clarity. The doctor's face filled the small screen, eyes wide with terror as the sky behind her turned blinding white. "Incoming! Everyone get to the shelters!" Her scream was cut short by a deafening roar. The feed dissolved into static and fire. Marcus stared at the frozen image of Sarah's face. He had never met her, but in that moment, she represented every innocent soul the galaxy had just murdered. 12,000 lives erased because 2 empires couldn't aim their weapons properly. Or maybe, not so accidentally. Back on Earth, the horror was spreading like wildfire. Global news networks broadcast the first grainy orbital images. Billions watched in stunned silence. For the first time in centuries, humanity felt genuine, collective fear. In New Geneva, Ambassador Alina Voss stood before an emergency session of the United Nations. The grand hall was packed. No one spoke as she played the raw footage from the Resolute. "The Krix Dominion has claimed it was a regrettable accident during combat with Vayari forces," Alina said, her voice tight with suppressed rage. "The Vayari Alliance offers the same hollow condolences. Both have expressed deepest sympathy and nothing more." A delegate from the African Union rose slowly. "Sympathy?" His voice shook with fury. 12,000 dead, children, families, and they offer sympathy. The chamber erupted. For the first time in generations, the calls were unanimous. Retaliation. Activate the defense grid. Bring our people home and prepare for war. Marcus received his reactivation orders while still on the surface of Proxima B. All retired officers were being called back. Factories long dormant were roaring back to life. Humanity was waking up angry. "Captain," Reyes called again, her voice low and urgent. "We found something else." They had located a partially intact section of the missile's guidance core, buried under layers of molten debris. The casing was unmistakably Krix design, heavy, brutal angular lines. But as Reyes ran a spectrometer scan, her eyes widened behind her visor. "Sir, look at the secondary matrix layer." Marcus leaned in. Hidden beneath the Krix outer shell was a thin, almost invisible coating. The analysis was clear. "Vayari stealth signature," Reyes whispered. "This wasn't a simple miss. The missile was deliberately modified. Someone wanted it to look like a stray shot." The implication hung heavy in the radioactive air. This wasn't just collateral damage. This was a message, a test. Someone in the galaxy had decided to see what humanity would do when finally pushed. Marcus felt cold fury replace the grief in his chest. "Bag it. We take this back to Earth. Let the politicians see what their neutrality just cost us." As the survey team prepared to lift off, the Resolute's long-range sensors pinged with new contacts. A Krix battle group, 8 heavy cruisers had just entered the outer edge of the Proxima system. They weren't attacking. Not yet. They were simply watching, waiting to see how the soft humans would respond. Marcus stood on the surface, staring up at the sky where the enemy ships lurked beyond visual range. The wind howled across the blackened plain, carrying ash that had once been his people. "They think we're still weak," he muttered inside his helmet. "They have no idea what they've just woken up." The rescue fleet burned for home with the grim evidence of genocide aboard. Behind them, the Krix ships continued their silent vigil, like predators circling a wounded animal. But this animal was about to bare its teeth. The galactic conclave chamber felt colder than space itself this time. The crystalline walls reflected thousands of hostile alien faces, but the usual chaotic noise had been replaced by a heavy, expectant silence. Every delegate knew what had happened at Elysium. The images had spread like a virus across the galactic networks. Ambassador Elena Voss stood at the central podium once more, but she was no longer the calm diplomat who had politely refused their war. Her eyes burned with quiet fury. Behind her, holographic footage from Proxima B played on loop: the blackened crater, the fused remains of schools and homes, the melted toys. "We come before this assembly with one set of demands," Elena said, her voice steady but edged like a blade. "Full reparations for the 12,000 lives you stole, the public execution of the commander who authorized that plasma lance, and a binding non-aggression treaty, enforced by neutral AI monitors, that neither the Krix Dominion nor the Vayari Alliance will ever violate again." The towering Krix warlord rose slowly, his obsidian scales clicking as he moved. A wet, guttural laugh echoed through the chamber. "You dare make demands, little human? Your pathetic settlement was a regrettable accident of war. These things happen. Join us against the Vayari, and perhaps we will offer you protection instead of punishment." Elena didn't flinch. She raised her hand and the footage changed. This time it was audio only, the final recording from Elysium School. A child's voice, bright and innocent, filled the massive chamber. "Daddy says the monsters won't come here. We're going to have a picnic tomorrow under the new trees." The laughter of children followed, then the sudden, terrifying roar of the descending missile. The scream that cut it off was raw, final, and unmistakably human. The chamber fell into absolute silence. Even the Vayari delegate, the silver-feathered avian with cold black eyes, shifted uncomfortably on her perch. A faint ripple of unease passed through the alien crowd. Elena's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "That child was 6 years old. Her name was supposed to be safe on a world you claim was outside the war. You brought this to us. Now you will answer for it." The Krix warlord slammed his fist down again, but this time there was a flicker of uncertainty in his 4 red eyes. "Sentimentality will not save you. Your species is soft. You have no fleet worthy of the name, no true warriors. Continue this insolence and we will show you what real war looks like." Elena leaned forward. "We tried to stay out of your madness. We begged for peace. But you murdered our people to test us. That was your mistake." She turned and walked out of the chamber without waiting for a response. The moment the shuttle doors sealed behind her, she allowed herself one moment of exhaustion, pressing her forehead against the cool metal wall. The gamble was enormous. Humanity's fleet was tiny compared to either empire, but the rage on Earth was volcanic now. There was no turning back. Back in the Sol system, the decision was made in a single, brutal night. The president of the United Earth Federation stood in the emergency war room beneath New Geneva, surrounded by military chiefs and civilian leaders. The table displayed real-time footage of the Krix battle group still lurking near Proxima. "We tried neutrality," the president said quietly. "They brought the war to our doorstep anyway, 12,000 dead. Children, now we finish what they started." The vote was unanimous. Across the planet, retired officers received reactivation orders. Marcus Hale was on a transport from the Resolute when his comms lit up with new orders. He was being given command of the UNS Vengeance, a heavy cruiser that had been pulled from mothballs and rapidly refitted with every weapon humanity could improvise. When he arrived at Lunar Shipyard 7, the sight took his breath away. The Vengeance was no longer an old vessel. She bristled with new railguns, experimental stealth fields, and racks of nuclear-tipped missiles. Engineers worked around the clock in zero-G, their faces grim with determination. "Captain on deck," Lieutenant Reyes called as Marcus stepped aboard. She had a fresh scar along her cheek from the Proxima survey mission. Marcus nodded to the assembled bridge crew. "You all know why we're here. They killed our people. They think we're weak. Today we start proving them wrong." The strategy sessions were tense and desperate. Humanity couldn't win a conventional war, so they wouldn't fight one. Asymmetric warfare. Hit hard, hit fast, disappear. Use stolen tech. Turn their own arrogance against them. Meanwhile, Elena Voss had gone dark on a secret mission. From a hidden asteroid base on the edge of the system, she began her shadow war, feeding false intelligence to both empires, making each believe the other was secretly courting humanity as an ally. The tension between Crix and Vayari ratcheted up another notch. 3 days later, Elena broadcast humanity's declaration across every channel the Conclave used. The message was simple, raw, and carried on every frequency. "Earth refused to join your war. We begged for peace. You answered by burning 12,000 of our people from the sky. Now you will learn why we stayed out of it for so long. We are coming, and we will not stop until justice is paid in full." The transmission ended with the image of the Elysium crater and a single line of text. "You woke the wrong species." On the bridge of the Vengeance, Marcus watched the broadcast with his crew. The silence that followed was electric. Every man and woman aboard knew the odds were terrible. A Crix fleet of over 200 ships was already burning toward the Sol system. They had broadcast their own message: surrender the terrorists or be glassed. Marcus stared at the tactical display showing the approaching doom. His fleet numbered only 47 warships. Outnumbered, outgunned. "Sir," Reyes said quietly beside him, "this could be suicide." Marcus turned to face his crew, his voice steady despite the storm inside his chest. "Maybe, but if we die making sure no one ever mistakes humanity for easy prey again. For the children of Elysium, for Sarah Okonkwo, for every soul they erased." He gripped the command chair. "Bring the fleet to full alert. Prepare the trap in the asteroid belt. Let them come." The stars outside, the viewport seemed to hold their breath. The war Earth had refused for centuries had finally arrived at their gates. And humanity was ready to answer with fire. The first strike came without warning, silent, surgical, and terrifying in its precision. Deep in the shadow of the Proxima system, a Crix supply convoy of 30 heavy freighters moved in tight formation, their holds packed with munitions destined for the front lines against the Vayari. The escort cruisers scanned lazily for threats, their crews confident that no one would dare touch a Dominion convoy so close to recently pacified space. They were wrong. From the darkness, human stealth drones drifted like ghosts. No engine flares, no radar signatures, just cold, dead metal coated in stolen Vayari stealth composites. On the bridge of the UNS Vengeance, Captain Marcus Hale watched the tactical hologram with predatory focus. His eyes were sunken from lack of sleep, but they burned with purpose. "Boarding teams, you are cleared for insertion," Marcus said into the comms. His voice was low, controlled. "Remember, quiet kills only. No survivors, no witnesses. Make it look like they simply vanished." In the void, black-armored human commandos used captured Crix transponder codes, stolen during the Proxima survey, to walk straight through the enemy's automated defenses. One by one, they teleported onto the bridges of the freighters. The Crix crew never saw death coming. A 7-foot warrior turned just as a combat knife slid between his armored plates. Another tried to sound the alarm, but found his throat crushed by an armored gauntlet. Within 11 minutes, all 30 ships were under human control. No shots fired, no explosions to light up the sensors. Marcus watched as the captured convoy was quietly redirected toward the system's sun. One by one, the massive ships plunged into the star's fiery embrace, vanishing without a trace. 30 down, Lieutenant Reyes reported from her station, her voice tight with adrenaline. "No distress signals. The Cricks will think they hit a Vayari ambush." Marcus leaned back in his command chair, staring at the empty space where the convoy had been. He should have felt satisfaction. Instead, he felt the cold weight of what they had become. Every Crick's life taken was blood for Elysium's 12,000, but the faces of those children haunted him. Back on the hidden asteroid base, Ambassador Alina Voss worked in near-total darkness. Her fingers flew across holographic interfaces as she fed carefully crafted lies into both Empire's intelligence networks. To the Cricks, she leaked evidence that the Vayari were secretly negotiating with humanity for advanced human AI targeting systems. To the Vayari, she planted proof that the Cricks were offering Earth territory in exchange for joining their side. The two empires, already at each other's throats, began turning their suspicion inward. Skirmishes flared hotter. Accusations flew faster. But the humans weren't done. 3 days later, Marcus led a second ghost operation against a Vayari listening post hidden in the Uit cloud of a distant system. This time the strike was bloodier. Human fighters, small, nimble craft crewed by pilots who had trained in secret for weeks, danced through the Vayari sensor web like shadows. When the defenses finally reacted, it was too late. Boarding pods slammed into the station's hull. Zero-gravity combat erupted in the narrow corridors. Marcus monitored the assault from the Vengeance, heart pounding as reports flooded in. Team Alpha reports heavy resistance on Deck 4. They've got elite avian guards. "Push through," Marcus snapped. "We need that station intact long enough to send the message." A young pilot's voice crackled over comms, strained and breathless. "Captain, they're faster than we thought. I'm losing." The transmission cut into static. Marcus's fists clenched. Another life lost for Elysium. The cost was mounting. In the end, the station fell. The surviving Vayari crew were stunned and left alive, barely as witnesses. When the Vayari admiral arrived to investigate the carnage, his forces found the central command deck eerily untouched except for one thing: a message carved deep into the bulkhead in perfect, brutal Crick's script. "Your turn next." The Vayari admiral's rage was immediate. He accused the Cricks of treachery. The Cricks, already suspicious from their missing convoy, accused the Vayari right back. The galaxy began to whisper. The soft humans, the ones who had refused every call to war, were now playing both sides like masters of shadow. On the Vengeance, Marcus stood alone in his quarters, staring at a small hollow photo of Leela. She was smiling, holding a drawing she had made of their family home. Sarah Okonkwo's final scream from the colony recorder still echoed in his nightmares. "We're becoming the monsters we hated," he whispered to the empty room. But he knew there was no other path. The empires only respected strength, and humanity would give them strength soaked in blood. The tension across known space thickened like a gathering storm. Both empires pulled ships from their main front lines to hunt the elusive human ghosts. Crick's warlords roared threats of total extermination. Vayari diplomats sent secret offers of alliance, which Alina politely rejected while leaking the offers to the Cricks. Then came the warning that froze every human heart. Long-range sensors on the edge of the Sol system detected a massive formation, over 200 Cricks warships burning hard toward Earth. At their center loomed 3 dreadnoughts, each capable of cracking a planet. Their broadcast was short, brutal, and clear. "Surrender the terrorists responsible for the attacks, or we will glass every human world, starting with Earth itself." Marcus stood on the bridge as the red icons swarmed across the tactical display. His fleet, now 48 ships after emergency reinforcements, was outnumbered more than 4-1. The asteroid belt trap was ready, but the odds still felt suicidal. "Sir," Reyes said quietly, standing beside him, "if they break through the belt." "They won't," Marcus replied, though doubt gnawed at him. "But if they do, we make sure their victory costs them everything." The crew worked in grim silence, preparing for the battle that would decide humanity's fate. In the distance, the Cricks armada grew larger by the hour, a wall of death moving relentlessly toward the Sol system. The shadows had done their work. Now the ghosts would have to fight in the light. The asteroid belt had become a graveyard waiting to be filled. Captain Marcus Hale stood on the bridge of the UNS Vengeance, eyes locked on the tactical hologram. 212 Krix warships burned toward Saul like a swarm of angry hornets. Their massive dreadnoughts led the formation, bristling with weapons that could vaporize cities. Humanity's fleet of 48 ships waited silently among the rocks. "Final check," Marcus ordered, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. "All stations report." One by one, the hidden railgun platforms, minefields, and converted cargo ships disguised as asteroids confirmed readiness. The Goliath, a massive hauler packed with every nuclear warhead Earth could scavenge, sat at the heart of the trap, silent and deadly. "They're entering the outer belt now," Lieutenant Reyes reported. Her hands trembled slightly over her console. The scar on her cheek from Proxima stood out pale against her tense face. Marcus nodded. "Hold fire until they're deep. Let them think we're hiding in terror." The Krix fleet pushed forward arrogantly, their sensors sweeping for the weak human defenders. They expected a quick slaughter. What they found was hell unleashed. The first wave of automated mines activated. Silent explosions bloomed in the void as Krix frigates vanished in brilliant fireballs. Debris slammed into larger cruisers, tearing hulls open. Before the enemy could react, hidden railgun platforms embedded in hollowed-out asteroids opened fire. Tungsten slugs accelerated to relativistic speeds ripped through armor like paper. "Beautiful," Marcus whispered as red icons began winking out on the display. "Captain, enemy formation is breaking," Reyes shouted. "They're deploying fighters." The real battle began. Human pilots in nimble Wraith-class fighters surged from hidden hangars among the rocks. They used the asteroids for cover, darting in and out like angry hornets. Krix gunners struggled to track the fast, unpredictable targets. Human ships took hits, some exploding in silent fire, but they gave as good as they got. Marcus watched a young pilot's fighter spiral past on the main screen, guns blazing, before a Krix plasma bolt turned it into expanding plasma. Another life gone. Another debt added to Elysium's bill. "All ships engage at will," Marcus roared. "Make them bleed for every child they murdered." The Vengeance surged forward, her new weapons singing. Railguns thundered. Experimental plasma lances, reverse-engineered from the very missile that destroyed Elysium, carved glowing wounds across Krix hulls. Boarding pods launched in waves, slamming into enemy cruisers. Inside those ships, human commandos in powered armor fought brutal close-quarters battles, using every dirty trick they knew. For 20 brutal minutes, humanity held the advantage. Krix losses mounted. 30 ships. 50. The asteroid field became a chaotic storm of debris, laser fire, and nuclear detonations. Then the enemy adapted. A massive Krix dreadnought, the Dominion's Fury, broke through the minefield and locked onto the Vengeance. Marcus felt the deck shake as targeting lasers painted his ship. "Evasive maneuvers," he barked. "All power to forward shields." The bridge lights flickered as the first volley struck. Armor plating buckled. A console exploded in sparks, hurling a crewman to the deck screaming. Alarms wailed. "Direct hit on Deck 7, Reyes yelled. "Hull breach, we've lost portside rail batteries." Marcus gripped the command chair as the ship shuddered again. Through the viewport, he watched a Krix cruiser explode nearby, but the Fury kept coming, relentless, monstrous. "Fire everything we have left at that dreadnought," he ordered. "We take her down or we die trying." The Vengeance unleashed a desperate barrage. Missiles streaked out. Human fighters swarmed the dreadnought like flies on a corpse. For a moment, it seemed they might break it. Then the counterattack came. A devastating plasma lance ripped across the Vengeance's midsection. The ship screamed. Artificial gravity failed. Marcus was thrown sideways, slamming into a bulkhead. Blood ran down his face. Reyes lay nearby, unconscious, her leg twisted at a sickening angle. "Captain," a dying engineer gasped over comms. "Reactors destabilizing, we have maybe 8 minutes." Marcus dragged himself back to the chair, vision blurring. The bridge was in ruins, smoke, sparks, and the acrid smell of burning circuits. On the display, the Crick's fleet was regrouping. They had lost nearly 80 ships, but the remaining force was still overwhelming. "This is it," Marcus whispered, thinking of Leela's smile, of Sarah Okonkwo's final scream, of the blackened crater on Proxima b. We made them pay, but it wasn't enough. The Dominion's fury moved in for the kill, its weapons charging for a final devastating salvo. Then every comms channel in the system exploded with new transmissions. Elena Voss's voice cut through the chaos, calm and icy. "Attention Crick's Dominion and Vayari Alliance forces. Stand down immediately. New orders from your respective high commands have been received. All offensive operations against human space are to cease. Return to your borders. The war is changing." Marcus blinked through the blood in his eyes. What the hell? On the tactical display, the Crick's fleet faltered. Confusion rippled through their formation. Some ships began slowing. Others held position, weapons still hot. Elena's voice continued, broadcast on every frequency. "Both empires have received irrefutable evidence that elements within your own ranks collaborated to test humanity. The attack on Elysium was no accident. Your leaders are now more concerned with internal purges than continuing this foolish campaign. Withdraw or face the full wrath of a species you should never have awakened." The Dominion's fury hung in space, its weapons still aimed at the dying vengeance. For 10 heart-stopping seconds, the entire battle froze in terrible suspense. Then, slowly, the dreadnought began to turn away. Marcus collapsed back into his chair as the Vengeance's emergency systems fought to keep the ship alive. Cheers and sobs mixed across the surviving human fleet comms. They had survived. Barely. But the cost was horrific. 23 human ships destroyed. Thousands more dead in the rocks of the asteroid belt. Marcus stared at the retreating Crick's icons, chest heaving. Elena's gamble had worked. Her months of careful lies, planted evidence, and psychological warfare had finally borne fruit. Both empires were turning their guns inward once more. The trap had sprung. And somehow, against all odds, humanity was still breathing. The silence after the storm was deafening. Captain Marcus Hales slumped in the ruined command chair of the UNS Vengeance, blood still trickling from the gash on his forehead. The bridge was a wreck of sparks, shattered consoles, and the acrid stench of burning insulation. Through the cracked viewport, he watched the massive Crick's armada slowly turning away, their dreadnoughts no longer bearing down like executioners. "They're actually retreating," Lieutenant Reyes whispered, her voice weak from pain as medics stabilized her broken leg. "Elena did it." Marcus didn't answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the tactical display as red enemy icons drifted backward, hesitation clear even across light seconds of space. Elena Voss's broadcast had hit them like a second asteroid belt. For several tense minutes, the Crick's fleet had remained locked in firing position, their weapons still hot, as if one wrong word could reignite the slaughter. Then the second wave of transmissions arrived. Across every channel, Crick's, Vayari, and Neutral, humanity broadcast the unfiltered truth of Elysium. High-resolution footage of the blackened crater, the melted remains of schools, the final screams of children. Sarah Okonkwo's terrified face frozen in her last moment, and the damning evidence, the hybrid missile with both Crick's and Vayari signatures. The galaxy watched in collective horror. On the Crick's homeworld, riots erupted within hours. Millions of lower-caste warriors, already exhausted from decades of endless war, turned on their leadership. "You murdered innocents to test a young species," they roared in the streets. Warlord palaces burned under the twin suns. In Vayari space, silver-feathered politicians fell from grace as their own citizens took to the skis in protest. The carefully maintained image of Vayari superiority cracked wide open. Both empires turned inward with vicious speed. Hunting for the conspirators who had authorized the test, strike on Elysium. But Marcus felt no joy in their chaos, only exhaustion and a deep, hollow grief. 23 human ships lost in the belt, nearly 4,000 dead in a single afternoon. The Vengeance herself was dying, limping back toward Lunar Shipyard on emergency thrusters. "Captain," Reyes said softly, "we won." Marcus touched the small hollow photo of Leela taped above his station. Her innocent smile felt like an accusation. "Did we?" he murmured. "Or did we just become them?" Back in the Galactic Conclave chamber above Luna, Ambassador Alina Voss stood once more at the center podium. This time the massive crystal amphitheater was deathly quiet. No shouting, no threats, only thousands of alien delegates watching the human woman with a mixture of fear, respect, and barely concealed dread. "You wanted us in your war," Alina began, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had stared into the abyss and refused to blink. "We refused, repeatedly. We chose peace while you chose slaughter. Then you brought the war to us anyway. You erased 12,000 innocent lives, our children, our doctors, our dreamers, with a single stray missile you now know was no accident." She let the words hang in the chilled air. Holographic images of the Elysium crater rotated slowly above the chamber. "Today, both your empires stand on the brink of internal collapse because of what you did to us. We did not glass your worlds. We did not commit genocide. Instead, we showed you the truth. And now you come begging." A Krix warlord, not the same arrogant one from before, but a lower-ranking survivor, stepped forward hesitantly. "We seek terms, mediation. The Dominion recognizes humanity as a sovereign power of equal standing." The Vayari delegate followed, her silver feathers dull with stress. "The Alliance offers full reparations, technology, territory, whatever you demand. Just end this shadow war you have waged against us." Alina's smile was cold and sharp. "You still don't understand. We are not here to conquer you. We are not here to join your games. We are here to make sure this never happens again." She activated one final broadcast, sending it live across every Empire channel. "From this day forward, any attack on human space, accidental or deliberate, will be met with total and unrelenting response. We have proven we can bleed you from the shadows. We have proven we can break your fleets in open battle. Cross that line again, and next time we will not stop at your warships. We will come for your empires themselves." The chamber remained silent as Alina stepped down from the podium. No one dared challenge her. Weeks later, the formal treaty was signed in the same chamber. Both empires agreed to heavy reparations, the dismantling of certain weapon programs, and the establishment of neutral zones around all human territories. Humanity became the unexpected mediator in the larger galactic conflict, the reluctant giant that neither side wanted to provoke again. On Earth, in the Australian Reclamation Zone, Marcus Hale finally returned home. Leela ran into his arms the moment he stepped off the transport, burying her face in his uniformed chest. "Daddy, the monsters are gone," she asked, looking up with those same trusting eyes. Marcus swallowed hard, holding her tight. "They're not gone, kiddo, but they've learned to fear us, and that's going to have to be enough." Later that night, as he sat on the same porch where this nightmare had begun, Marcus stared at the stars. The Vengeance was being repaired. Reyes would walk again. Alina was already negotiating new trade deals that favored humanity. The galaxy had changed. But the cost still weighed on him, like radiation on Proxima b. In the end, Earth had refused to join the war for centuries. They had chosen peace, progress, and isolation, until one careless missile had burned their innocence away. Now the galaxy understood a truth, written in fire and blood. Never wake humanity. Because when pushed too far, the species that once begged for peace becomes something far more dangerous. Something unstoppable. Subscribe